Alright, so because we're not having class today, we are going to try and do almost the same process, and really what we're talking about today is the writing process, and we're going to focus specifically on planning. So first you need to have taken the quiz writing number 5, I believe, and then you need to watch this video. As we go along, we're going to talk about different planning styles, and you do want to pause and try them as we go along. And then also, after that, you do need to post your this I believe, whatever your belief is. So we'll focus a little bit on that, and you'll get an idea of what. So with the writing process, just like with the reading process, usually we'll break it up into 3 different steps. Planning, which also is sometimes called pre-writing or invention, drafting, which is also just called writing, and revising. And when we say revising, we don't mean just editing. In fact, that's probably the last step of it. But we'll also refer to different terms with revising as early, middle, late, global, regional, local. And when we read the crummy first draft, that's also another one that will have some other terms that might come up with the revising. Right here, what I wanted to show you is we have this idea a lot of times that we have to do each one of these, like it's 1, 2, and 3, and it goes from on a straight line. Here's planning, drafting, revising. But really, the writing process is usually circular, or what we call recursive. So you may be doing some of these things in each different step. You may have to stop and go back to a different one, and you may not do all of these things. What we found is writers, most of them, if they do their drafting, a lot of time they're going to do some revising as they're going along. But if they do most of their drafting and try and get it all down and then focus on revising, usually they're a little bit more successful. A lot of times if they are people who have kind of writer's block, planning, or pre-writing, or invention is a really good thing to do first before you do drafting, because usually then when you go to the drafting process, you're a lot more effective. So again, these are not all things that you have to do each one of them, and also you don't have to do all of them in this order, but usually you're more successful if you do at least a little part of these, especially depending on if you have trouble coming up with ideas or if you have trouble getting things down. So here are a list of planning, pre-writing, or invention, and not all of these came from the article that you had, or from the book that you had to read for days. Some of these came from the narrative writing in video that we saw the other day, specifically storyboarding, which it had a lot of the same things. And some of these we'll find are better if you're just trying to come up with ideas. Some of them are better once you have that idea of starting to write them. And so we're going to talk about first the ones that are probably most helpful for coming up with ideas, and then the next one's the ones that are most helpful once you have your idea. The first one is brainstorming or listing, whichever you want to call it. So we're coming up with ideas, and we're trying to come up with beliefs, and these are philosophical beliefs that we have. So it can be sayings, it can be really activities that you really like. You can also go the other way. You can also start, if you want to, with experiences and then come up with the main belief that that experience has done. I decided to do here different beliefs, and so I put that up. So first off, I start off with some of the main beliefs that I have in my life. So you should succeed because of, not in spite of, obstacles or trials. I'm going to be okay. Another one I have is that I believe in creativity and revision, and also because those are great things, not only on a kind of a physical level, but also things in my life. So first off, if I was going to do this one, I might also come up with some different experiences that have to do with it. I'm just going to list a bunch of them. So one of them is struggling to read because of slight dyslexia. I found out one of the things that I have is that I do have dyslexic tendencies. Almost quitting the flute because it was hard. So I was so bad at one point in time, my band teacher took me out in the hall and said, "Do you really want to do this instrument?" and asked me if I wanted to quit. Getting my gallbladder out the first semester of my master's before Thanksgiving, very exciting one. Or, and here my roommate committing suicide. So that's again another one. All these obstacles that could be used, and I'm going to be okay is similar. So I would probably say this one might be the main one that I would use if I was going to do this one. Or creativity and revision. So I might talk about the main reason why I'm a writing teacher is because it is something where I can be creative with words and ideas, and also it's never really done that I have to think about revision, and also that kind of applies to how I live my life, right? So I like to do crafts, I like to do painting, I like to do any of those kinds of things that give me a chance to be creative and revise different things. So if I was going to do it this opposite way, I might even just go and say, okay, I'm going to list a couple of these things and then come up with the main belief that it has. And also, you see that this is a lot of different experiences. Again, we've talked about it could also be concrete examples, like things that have happened. And you probably wouldn't want to focus on more than two. So I would say, okay, these ones are probably not the ones I'm going to focus on. I'll probably focus on, because this is the first one that helped me establish what I'm going to do, that one and this one right here are the ones that are probably going to be the ones that I would focus on. Oh, and I have one more here that I would might put in. My dad having a heart transplant. So different things like that. And as you see, it didn't all happen at once. I decided to go back and add one. So I might even take this one off and put this one as the main one. So I'd probably focus on this one and this one. The next one is keeping a journal. So in this case, I'm not making you keep a journal, but you can if your folk want to find experiences that were significant in your life and you've kept a journal. I would look back at that. Also, you can, if you keep notebooks, I would start writing things around as they come to you and keep it in your bag. Another one that's really helpful to come up with ideas is clustering. So it's a little bit hard for me to show you on the screen, so I'm going to use a program called Mind Map. Alright, so again I have the idea of, and you've also probably heard this called clustering, bubbling, mapping, whatever you want to call it, it's kind of the same thing. And so I could do several different bubbles probably here on my main belief. Here I'm going to add some different things, right? So succeed because of not in spite of trials or obstacles. So one thing here, sorry, I'm gonna see if I can add another one. Come on. Right, so let's say that this is the one that I've decided to do my belief on, and again I talked about I can't probably do all of these ones, so I'm going to deal with probably this one, and then so I know that I'm going to deal with these experiences, so I'm going to add some detail to them. So one of the things is going to resource room, so I'm going to add some of the details part of this experience, okay, and then I'm going to add another one. I'm going to say how I felt like I wasn't smart, right? And sorry, we're gonna have to take this up a little bit, and then probably the big thing is that I realized and that is not how you spell realized, that I could memorize words instead of sounds, and this was a big one for me. So so that's just, this would be the main belief I'm doing, these are the ones I'm focusing on, and then I'm just adding some details to them. So you can do, and of course you can do a line, they can come off in all different directions, right? Different things like that. Here I had to deal with, so starting off here, dealing with gallbladder pain. So first, having the pain, going to the doctor, who decides we can't wait until Christmas. And then probably something like here I might add another one. It will let me, sorry. dealing with the pain and having to ask people for help, because that's a big thing that's hard for me, right? Those kind of things. So again, you could do this, or again, I'm gonna start a new one, just a second. You can do the other way, right? We could do start with the experience and then do some of the details and have it lead to the belief. So I think the main thing I learned here is that we have to pull together as a family. So different things like that, and then adding different things. So we're running out of time, so I'm going to skip. All right. So these ones, as I said, we're going to skip over to these ones. So these ones are really helpful in kind of knowing, getting some ideas of what you want to do. So make sure you've paused during and done at least one of these exercises. Then if you kind of know what you're doing, you can do some of these other ones. So questioning, answering first off before you get into the writing is who, what, where, why, how, right? With free writing, and you would go in and just give yourself an amount of time. A lot of times it's helpful, or just start writing, but don't worry too much about the punctuation, different things. If you run out of something for a moment, you can say, I don't know, pause, different things like that. So let me just show you an example of that. All right, so here I picked a different subject. I'm just going to start writing kind of these things, so, and keep going. Alright, so here's some things. You'll notice that I went pretty fast, and this was just for a couple sentences that I was showing you, but I left all of those things that were going on, and I kind of gave myself just a minute to do this, and I would keep going too for a lot of this, but I didn't do a lot of those things, and I can always go back and fix those things afterwards. So maybe I'll do a paragraph, fix it. Maybe I'll try and do all of it together and then fix it. But try not to stop yourself as you're doing this, because that's where a lot of times people get paralysis, because they're trying to be perfect, and it's harder to do that. The one that we talked about in the video before, and this is really helpful if you're a visual person, is storyboarding, right? Another one that you can do, again, outlining, especially once you know what your experience is. Maybe you want to outline and take us through that experience. So just like I had a couple of those things in the clustering, right? Like 3 different things that had to kind of do with that experience. Maybe I'd do the same thing with the outlining, but go into even a little bit more detail, right? I'd figure out what I wanted to focus on. So 2 to 3 pages isn't very long, but it is enough to do maybe 1 or 2 experiences, or you have one focus and a lot of concrete experiences that go with that. So that is the major thing that you want to do today, is do some planning and figure out what your belief is, and then I'm going to show you just where it goes. So it will come up on our board, but since it's a little bit too early, I'm going to show you. So we're in the This I Believe essay. Last week was intro week. This week is week 1. So you can go here, but you'll see, and this will change a little bit as soon as we go to the post-it belief statement, and you can also go through discussions in a bunch of other ways as well. And I'll just show you, I've already posted my belief and some things that I'm going to go with it. My belief is succeed because of and not in spite of obstacles and trials. I think I will focus on my experience first learning to read, having my gallbladder out before Thanksgiving, my first semesters of my master's. Here are also some guidelines here that tells you kind of some things that will go along when you write the actual story. And then also you can, on this site, you can look at what other people have done for theirs. So if you explore featured essays